Hi, and welcome to our national event with Esther Jantzen. We're so grateful that you're here today. We will have a time with Esther, and then we will move over to some questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Esther to speak.
Thank you so very much, Allison. Can everybody hear me? Just nod. Perfect. I am really grateful to be here. I'm a little nervous, both about the technology and about what I'm going to be talking about, but I guess that is par for the course when you're starting this kind of a little pilgrimage of presentation. I want to thank two people. One is Allison for the legwork she does for all of us to put these events on. It's a great service to pilgrimage, to the American Pilgrims, and to all of us, and I really appreciate it. And then the second person I want to thank is my good friend and buddy, Adam Wells, who is a pilgrim extraordinaire on and off the Camino. And I see some of you applauding him, and that's exactly how I feel about him. And he's a wizard with PowerPoint, and he helped me construct my PowerPoints for this presentation. I'm just really grateful. And I know he's there. He'll help me out if something goes amiss here. So the topic that I've chosen, I'm going to share screen and put a PowerPoint up, and then I'll talk for a little bit and then pause it and then come back to the PowerPoint. So here we go. And I need to click this one. And I believe all of you should be seeing the full screen. And I'm going to also, perfect. So the topic of my talk is the pilgrimage values that we can nurture in children of all ages. When I was working with what am I going to call this presentation, I thought, children of all ages, is that a little bit corny? But then I remembered that phrase, the child is father to the man. And I looked up who said it. And of course, it was the wonderful British poet, William Wordsworth. And he uses that phrase, the child is father of the man, in a poem, the first line of which just totally, I just love it. And the first line of that poem is, "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky." And the rest of the poem is about how he hopes that the joy and the awe that he experienced as a child will carry into his older years. And of course, Wordsworth was a big hiker, a big walker in the Lake District in England. And he does maintain his awe of nature and the world and being alive. This character that I have over here on the left is an image of the character in my book, Walk, Jamie Bacon's secret mission on the Camino de Santiago. And I'll show you a picture of the book later. But this image is done by Jennifer Lawson, who was a pilgrim and put out a whole booklet of her drawings and her paintings. It's just wonderful. I met her at a gathering, I think it was 2017 in San Jose, and asked her if she'd be willing to work on my cover for me, and she was. So my heart leaps up when I think about the Camino. So for a minute, I'm going to stop screen share and come back and see your beautiful faces. Linnea, nice to see you. I'm not sure you're aware of this, but pilgrimage is making a great comeback in the world. If you get a chance at some point to go to the website of the British Pilgrimage Trust, you can see that in Britain, they're beginning to explore a lot of the ancient pilgrimage routes to sacred spots in Britain, and Britain has a lot. And they're encouraging people to go on pilgrimage as a holistic well-being activity. And they define pilgrimage in a rather broad way as a, the author Phil Cosino also uses this description, that pilgrimage is a purposeful journey to find something that matters deeply to the pilgrim. And, there can be any number of things and reasons why people will go on pilgrimage, as you well know. So I am grateful that pilgrimage is making a comeback. And here in the US, I do know that some people are trying to build a pilgrimage route up the coast of California, following the Spanish mission churches. And at this time in history, that might be a sort of a double-edged sword because of some of the history of how those churches were built and the abuse of indigenous people. But still, there is the opportunity to see those places as sacred. I know that in Crestone, Colorado, there's a little pilgrimage route. I don't think it's used a whole lot, but it's there. And in the US, also in New Mexico, where I am at this moment, there is the large pilgrimage that happens at Easter to the town of Chimayo. So their pilgrimage is making a comeback, and therefore I think it's valuable to consider, how can we nurture the values that pilgrimage offers if we choose to explore them? How can we pass them on to the next generation and develop them in a greater way in ourselves? I see pilgrimage as a training ground for high character for ourselves and for kids. And by high character, I mean it's an opportunity to develop the qualities of generosity, of kindness, of service, of integrity, of perseverance, of gratitude, of wonder, of respect. All that is available to us as we take pilgrimages. My intention in this talk is to identify some of the takeaways that I have gleaned from the Camino experience, and to figure out how do we in fact extend these wonderful values and qualities to ourselves and the next generation. So this talk will be in 3 parts. I want to do a sort of a quick bio and just tell you a little bit about why I wrote a book about it. And then I want to talk about the 13 values that I've identified. And then I finally want to end up with a discussion. And I hope our discussion can be broad ranging and rewarding to all of us. So I've had 3 Caminos. Every one of them has been on the Camino Frances. And the first one was in 2008, then 2011, and then 2013. Now, when I first went in 2008, I realized very early on in the walk, like maybe on the 3rd day, that this was just an extraordinary experience. And I wanted to find a way to pass it on to my grandchildren. So as I walked along, I both thought about, well, how could I possibly maybe write a book about this? And are there any resources for kids that I could purchase somewhere and take back to my grandchildren? Well, over time, I discovered actually there are almost no books about the Camino for teens and preteens, and that that meant for me that, oh, okay, then I'm going to try to write one, because I think it's really important. It's such a valuable experience to adults. Why couldn't children vicariously at least experience it? So it took me 12 years to write my book. That's why I went back twice more in 2011 and 2013 to walk the Camino, the Frances again. I wanted to make sure I got my descriptions correct. I wanted to spend a little more time finding out what the legends were that are the foundation of the Camino. And I I also had a convergence of my interests. I was really interested in family literacy, so I wanted to create a book that had a family in it. And my career was as an English teacher in Philadelphia, and I was always kind of disappointed that the kids knew so little about the larger world. And I thought, if there's some way that I could write something that would introduce them in an engaging way to other countries, to Europe, to European history, it would be a valuable contribution. So in many ways, my children's book, Walk, is my give back to the Camino. I'm sure you all know that all of us, often when we finish the Camino, want to find a way to give back. And the last thing I want to say before I switch to the values that I think we glean from the Camino is I believe it's the mission of us adults, of us elders, of all of us, to assist in raising the next generation. I do believe it takes a village to raise a child. And even if we don't have children, it's possible for us to hold in our hearts and minds the importance of awakening kids to beauty, to story, to history, to adventure. And therefore, I urge you to do that, to participate in whatever way you can in supporting the next generation to get as much benefit from the pilgrimage experience as all of us do. So I'm going to go back to screen share. And I'm hoping that you all see the full image of my title slide. Yes?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Okay. The first value that I think we glean from the being on pilgrimage, and especially on the Camino, is appreciating walking on the earth. And I mean this in a real literal way. I mean walking on the soil of the earth. I believe, as they state in the British Pilgrimage Trust website, I believe that there is a holistic well-being that comes to us from walking on soil. I'm expecting that many of you, when you were on your Camino, I'm assuming most of us have walked it, but maybe not, you experienced you had the experience of finding some of synchronicities, of things showing up in your world that were extraordinary and met something that you had a need for. And I had that experience just, I think it was 2 days ago. I was reading the newsletter of the Albuquerque chapter of the American Pilgrims. And right up front, and I really want to thank Linnea and Paula for this, right up front was a quote that was perfect for this slide. And the quote is by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk and spiritual leader. And he says, you got to love this. He says, the true miracle is not walking on water or walking on air, but simply walking on this earth. And I think walking on the earth is of benefit to us as human beings for this holistic well-being, for connecting with nature, for seeing the opportunity to breathe deeply and expand and heal and reflect. But I also think that our experience of walking on the earth is in some esoteric way of benefit to the landscape, to the earth itself. If we see Earth as a living being, which I believe she, Gaia, is, our mother, we all know that many places have been degraded by human activity, by the activity of chemicals being put into the soil, the extraction of minerals, of oil, of coal, and so on. And I think when we walk the earth ourselves, if we walk with a great love for the earth, for the experience of being alive, if we walk with that, I think on some very subtle level, the earth can receive that. And I think we, in some way, help to shift the balance of the degradation that's happened on our earth and uplift the entire planet. I assume that our love, our awe goes out as thoughts do into the universe. And I think that just by appreciating the fact that we are walking on earth, we in fact do some degree, some small degree maybe, of healing it. And I also want to say that I believe that in walking on the earth, we can, if we choose, we can connect in some way with the invisible beings, the angels, the she, the fairies, whatever you want to call them. I can't prove they're there, but I sense that in walking on the earth, we can make contact with them and take their support and their love into ourselves and extend our love toward them. So that's the first value that I think is really important when we walk on the Camino. The second value that I think is quite wonderful that we experience on the Camino is this value of sensing the wonder of our own bodies. This is a photo that I took in 2008 on my first Camino, when 3 American women were together, standing together, and we looked down and we realized each of us had purchased the same brand, the same boot. And it's like, what? How could that happen? And we're standing here on the stones of the church at Eunate, which is a beautiful, beautiful place to go visit. And what I think we can nurture in ourselves and in children is to appreciate how all our senses can be activated on the Camino, how we can get into our body, how we can practice deep breathing, how we can enjoy how our body parts automatically coordinate, like our arms and our legs move, left and right differently. We can appreciate that our bodies are both incredibly fragile and we have to protect them, and they're incredibly strong. And we can watch as we walk the Camino how that strength develops in us and how wonderful that is. I think we can experience how our bodies are so wonderful that damage that we do, the blisters that we might get, are healed sometimes in a day. We can experience resilience and at the same time resistance in our bodies when our bodies say, I'm not going a step further, I want to sit down. The joy of movement, the fun of establishing a pace, enjoying the rhythm of our own bodies, enjoying how our pace aligns with somebody else and how we can sing together as we keep time with our bodies. All those are the quite wonderful value that we experience on the Camino of the wonder of our bodies. The third one is one that's really pretty obvious. We have the opportunity on the Camino to learn about other places and times. How many of you just raised your hand? I can't see you all, but how many of you recognize where this is? And can somebody tell us where this might be? I don't know. Anybody offer this? This is Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, that's in France, where a lot of us pilgrims started. Somebody there was going to maybe speak. And for all of us, I think learning about other places and times is one of the main things that we experienced on the Camino. I think it's important to look at all of the whole range of activities, the livelihoods, the industries, the language, the food, but I think it's especially fun to learn and enjoy the stories of the Camino. And I tried in my book to put a lot of those in. I mean, I had to do quite some research to figure out why El Cid was buried in Burgos and what he did, and to discover that in fact he'd been kicked out of that town at one point in his life. So those are that's a really important value. I'm just aware that my time is ticking by. The next value, oh, this is important to me. This is indulging in awe about human creativity. And I want to tell you, my heart leaps up when I see wind turbines. And I took this picture in 2008 because it expresses both to me the awe I have of human creativity when it's applied to solving problems, to technology, and the human creativity that we experience in the arts. But it's not the arts alone. We have an opportunity as we walk and see so much that's new to us to really indulge in appreciation for what human beings are capable of. The fifth value that I think we gain when we walk the Camino is a expanded capacity to observe. I have a friend who does far on the same. We can be walking together, and he finds far more things in the environment than I do, and I've realized that one of the things I want to learn more from myself and also encourage in others is more of the practice of observation. Can I look close? Can I look wide? What's there? What don't I understand? I think that documenting our Camino is extremely important, especially for the way in which it supports reflection when we come back. So documenting the Camino can be in many ways. It can be in photographs, it could be in emailing people, it could be in journaling, it can be in writing about conversations, the conversations you have with yourself, the conversations you have with others. One of the things I did originally for my book was I started documenting things that I thought my boy character would be interested in. And I took a lot of pictures of manhole covers and of toilet flushing apparatuses. I thought as I walked through those 500 miles and visited many different places, I couldn't believe how many different ways of toilet flushing there were then. Anyway, I took pictures of those. They didn't go into the book at all, but they did expand my capacity to observe when I was walking. The sixth value that I think we can have when we walk the Camino is to reflect on our material and our spiritual values. We can assess our lives. We can ask ourselves, what do my possessions say about me? What do I want to give up in the way of material possessions? What do I want more of? How do I, in terms of spiritual values, how do I embody the qualities of heart that I really want to expand? Do these qualities on this graffiti, amor, humor, and respect, are those what I want to develop more in me? And then if so, like, well, how do I go about doing that? And of course, sometimes a simple awareness supports us in that. The seventh value that I think we can develop from taking from doing the Camino or taking a pilgrimage is this one of taking responsibility for our own emotional experiences. You know, if I'm walking and I'm experiencing anger, it's something that happened, if I'm blaming someone, well, guess who can lift that anger? Guess whose job it is to let it go? And if I'm depressed, if I'm unhappy, well, guess who gets the opportunity to find ways to move into gratitude and to let go of the negative judgments of myself or others? What if I take responsibility to assume that everything I experience is for me rather than against me? And that I spend my time thinking about how an experience that I might have viewed as negative, how can I say that that is something that I can learn from? I think that's a really important one. The eighth value that I want to say we can develop is an awareness of what attracts you. I'm wondering if anybody, and please, again, I can't see you, but does anybody know where this is? Would anybody be willing to hazard a guess? I'll give you just a minute to unmute if you think you know.
Ponferrada?
No, but that's a good guess. You know what it is? When after you leave the place on the Camino Frances where you get the free wine and you're moving along toward right now I'm not thinking of the name of the place, but you turn a corner and then you see this vast plain and then this mountain rising out of that plain, and on the top of that mountain is a castle. This is the village that's at the bottom of that hill, of that mountain, is Villa Mayor de Monjardin. And when I was there the first time, for some reason, I decided to walk up the mountain, circling it to get to that castle, it looked like, at the top. And this is what was there. And I've wondered about why I did that. Nobody else I knew was walking this one, and it was a bit scary because it wasn't the Camino, and you went through some kind of dark forested areas to get there. But I did it, and I actually include a scene in the book where the characters, the two children, two young people, walk up to it, and they have an experience of meeting someone up there, as I met somebody up there who gave them a special key, a special understanding. So what I think is valuable, and I think I'll talk about this a little bit later too, it's to be willing to indulge some very vague intuitions that come up, and to assess whether they're something that you want to indulge and follow what attracts. So the ninth one is that we can learn on the Camino is the payoffs of perseverance. I don't know about you, but when I went up the Alto del Pardon, the mountain of forgiveness, it was blazing sunlight. I hadn't slept well in Pamplona. I was so unhappy as I climbed up that mountain. And then I turned that corner and saw this wonderful sculpture that I had no idea was there. And it was like, oh, okay, this is why I must learn to persevere and not give up. And of course, on the Camino, often you don't have a choice about whether you're going to persevere or not, because you're not going to lie down on the in a field and rest. So I think we get to learn the payoffs of that. And the payoffs, of course, are developing self-trust and knowing that you can keep your own commitments to yourself, which are important ones. This quality is experiencing the fun of service. I couldn't find a photograph that actually demonstrated that too well, but I do know that there's a lot of fun in being of service. There's a lot of gratification that comes from that. And when we're of service to other pilgrims, it can be on the psychological level, listening to people, encouraging them, demonstrating compassion. It can be on the physical level when we create a meal and share our cooking with them, or maybe when we give up a lower berth to someone who's older, or we share our first aid kit. And we can be of service when we go about creating and honoring community, the community that we pilgrims are. We can pick up trash. We can make sure that we abide by the guidelines. We can clean the bathrooms. We can help the hospitaleros. There's a million ways we can be of service. The 11th one is that we get to do on the Camino is participating in building community. And this person, Pat, was clearly wanting to be community with Brian. We can build community with our walking group. Many of us have the experience of falling in with a group of people that we stay with for a number of days. We build community that way, and then we often meet up with that community at the end. We can build community by inviting someone to eat with us, by maintaining silence when people are sleeping, by abiding by the rules, by going to the evening prayers that someone has put together and just appreciating what that is. The 12th one is seeing as a life as an adventure you can shape. And again, it was hard to find a picture for this, but there is something about the position, the posture of that dog, that he's going to explore this piece of farm equipment or to wander past it and to ignore it. I don't know what he's doing, but I think sharing with children the skills that are needed to live and build your life as an adventure are a great contribution. The skills are using one's imagination, learning how to make plans, being willing to follow one's own interests and intuitions, regardless of what other people are doing. To learn to do differently than others, to choose to see oneself as a global citizen, to act and talk that way, to be willing to be open, to be curious, to explore, to be exploratory. Those are all attitudes and choices that allow kids to see, kids and adults, to see that life is more than our career. Life is more than a raising of a family. that we can be guided to really indulge in those dreams that we had as children, or often had as children, or the dreams that we also develop as adults. And the last value that I think we can develop on the Camino, or that I've chosen to at least write about, is the one of experiencing the miracles. Now, this photograph is from, I think it was 2019, when I visited Santiago, and I realized that they had managed to clean the whole exterior of the building. And when I saw it first in 2008, it was lichen covered and dark. And, obviously it was a gorgeous building. But when it was cleaned, as they cleaned it for, I think, the Holy Year of 2021, that's what they were working toward. All the glory of this. And it was a miracle to me, that I was there and that I got to see that. And of course, for all of us, when we finally reached Santiago, that is a miracle in itself, that we managed to walk the 500 miles or the 100 miles or however long we walked to actually get there, to this wonderful, wonderful place. Another miracle, which actually Adam mentioned, because he was helping me put this PowerPoint together, he brought up the idea that the miracle that behind this incredible Baroque facade is one of the most beautiful Romanesque sculptures, the Portico of Glory, that is a whole different art form. I mean, it's still sculpture, but it's a whole different period, and it's one that is so worthy of making this tremendous pilgrimage to get to see. And finally, this value is encapsulated, the idea of experiencing the miracles that are available to us when we take time after we return to reflect on all we've learned. So I hope you identify with some of these values as being available to us on the Camino, and probably there are many more. I want to now put up a slide of the book I wrote. Again, it's called Walk, Jamie Bacon's Secret Mission on the Camino de Santiago. I'm not going to tell you what that secret mission is, or what this character, this wonderful character that Jennifer Lawson drew and painted for me. I won't tell you what the secret is that he carries, but I do want to let you know that this is available internationally. And the reason I use that word deliberately is because there are very, very, very few books about the Camino for children, for young adults. And I also want to say parenthetically that I've gotten a lot of wonderful feedback from adult readers, elders, who feel like this aided them to understand their own early dreams, and also taught them a great deal about the Camino that they didn't know otherwise. So it's available from bookstores or Amazon or online retailers. And if you have any interest in getting in contact with me, there's my Gmail address. And oh gosh, my time is almost up. I do want to tell you one thing that happened very recently. I've been wanting to get this book into schools, and I don't know how to do that because it's difficult to get books into schools. But very recently, a woman who is the curriculum writer for a publishing company that provides materials to the homeschool community contacted me She said she wanted to use my book. She said she'd been looking for a book about Europe that wasn't set in World War II, and this is the only one she felt she'd found, and she loved it. She said also, this is very interesting, she said also that she wanted to make 3 little changes. And in this era of censorship, I just totally wasn't really ready to do that. So we came to this wonderful compromise that they are going to republish Walk in a special edition for schools. And she'll take out a few words that she felt their community would not be happy to read or have their kids read. I actually use the word shit twice, and it's about cow poop. So it's used correctly, but she didn't like it. So they're going to do this special edition, take those out, maybe add another map or two, and it's going to be available for the 7th to 9th grade curriculum on world geography. And this just thrills me because I want all those parents and families to understand about the Camino and how rewarding it is to, as a family, do some of these kinds of experiences. So now I'm going to stop share and come back to this wonderful group of people and invite you to ask any questions you might or comments you want to make. I do want to say one more thing. I once went to a talk that the title of it was, "Can Children's Literature Save the World?" Which I thought was an amazing question. And, I've thought about it over time, and I said, yes, children's literature can save the world. And the way I think it can save the world is that it can create images of how we can live and how we can appreciate our world in such a way that as adults, we take that energy of love for the earth or love for adventure, and we live it out. And that in that process, we do a little bit, perhaps, towards saving the world. So I'm open to questions, comments. You may have 15 more values that you can add to the 13 that I came up with, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Esther, thank you so much. I do want to say, if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, that's fine. Or if you want to use the chat, either one would be fine. So it looks like someone just unmuted themselves. Martin, did you have a question?
Oops, you caught me. Yeah, actually, Esther, I think your topic is wonderful. And on the very first day of my first Camino, walking over the Pyrenees, there was a family from Alaska, 2 parents and 3 kids between 4 and 8. And I was so impressed with that. And I was wondering what thoughts you have on what inspires a family to take on that challenge, and what you think what kind of gifts that gives to the children and even the parents as well.
Well, I think we could answer that, open that to other people. I think that one of the things that inspires parents to do it is, and this is really kind of a horrible thing to say, but that our educational system doesn't provide an expansive enough view to what the world is about. And that parents that come with maybe they're parents who've traveled a lot themselves or whatever, but they want in the early years of their children's childhood to share that with the kids, to inculcate those values of tolerance, of appreciation, and that maybe that's why they do it. It would be fun to ask. Sometimes it's that they can't leave their kids behind and they want to do the Camino themselves. So they'll bring a teenager along. And what better thing to do for kids than something like that? Would somebody else like to answer that?
I can.
Okay.
Because I did that. I traveled. I did the Camino with my 2 teenager kids, and along with a friend with her 2 teenager kids. So we actually a family, 2 families, a total of 8. And that's how everything started. That's what we decided to do for vacation, go walk the Camino with the kids. And of course, as teenagers, like, I don't want to go. And it's we don't have a choice. You have to come along.
Who's talking, Christina?
I am.
Okay.
talking,
Okay.
So
I do. Yeah, go ahead.
So anyway, so that's how everything started. It was just what we're gonna do for vacation. Luckily, my friend, she was from Galicia, so she was very aware of the Camino. But we got everybody on board watching a movie, the famous movie that got everybody hooked up and said, I want to do that too. So the husband's jumping on board and we just did. So
I love hearing that.
Yeah, and it was fantastic, for a vacation, for sure. It was a life change for everybody.
Yes.
There's experience there. It's unforgettable for all of them. And, and like my son now, he's a training hospitalero. So things like that happen. So anyway, so this is my take of being, one of those families that took kids.
I think that's just wonderful. I thank you for doing that with the next generation.
I think George Greenia had a question.
Sure. I'd just like to thank Esther for a lovely presentation and a lovely book. It's not the type of thing I get to read very much, but somehow I acquired the book and I started reading it. And it's one of those few books I actually finished. So it was, I shared with Esther later on that as cranky as I am and as precise as I try to be, there are really no mistakes in this book. There's no misplaced items. The Spanish is all correct. She gets all the nuts and bolts right. So I was delighted. I would recommend the book actually to college kids, because college kids who are going to do the Camino de Santiago are burdened with all sorts of formal, serious things to read. And actually, they're still fond of all the literature they read when they were younger. And this is one book that they will finish. They don't finish everything we assign them in college. But this is one book they could wolf down, get a sense of what the journey is like, and sort of feel a mastery of the narrative. So this is, I think, a comfortable read for young people of every age. So well done, Esther. Thank you so much.
George, I am beyond grateful for your comments. And what George did do is he sent me a list of the Spanish words that I didn't have the accents on correctly. And one of the wonderful things about being an independent publisher is you can go on Amazon and take that book, make the corrections, put those little accents in, and put it back up, and nobody even knows that you've made that kind of change. And your devotion, George, to the Camino and to educating about the Camino. George has established the Institute of Pilgrimage Studies, and someday I would love to go there. So thank you so much, George.
Do we have more questions?
Joe.
Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you for the presentation and for presenting your list of values. And you said how we might have additional ones that we would add. But I'm wondering, how did you determine where to stop and which ones to keep in, and what was left on the cutting room floor?
Well, I started with 20. And then I thought, I only have an hour. I could go on and on about all these, and I could, many photos on any of them. So I thought, well, what will probably fit into the time frame we have? And there are a couple of those that are to me, top priorities, this one of appreciating walking, this one of seeing life as an adventure, seeing life as adventure, and the one, what did I call it? Taking responsibility for your own emotional experience. Those are the ones that to me are really significant, and ones that I really want to see young people gain and explore and do their best to practice and expand into their own personalities. Did you have one, Joe? Another one?
Well, you put me on the spot. I did not have one that was, I mean, you covered a lot of ground there. So let me give it a little bit of a think.
Okay, okay.
I think
Bruce?
Bruce had a question.
I do. I want to mention as an aside that I just bought the book on Amazon, but it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get here, and I'm depressed about it. But
Thank you.
I'm putting together a presentation about the Camino, and I would like to include your values. Is there possible to get the list or maybe a copy of? Oh, your recording. I'd forgotten about that.
There's
A
the
copy of the
recording.
recording.
And I believe, Allison, that you can send out the PowerPoint.
I could, if you want me to. The recording will also be available on the YouTube channel, and so you can see the information there too, or the American Pilgrims YouTube channel.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Bruce, I'll put my email in the chat, and so if you email me, then I can respond back with the PowerPoint.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You could always get it today on Kindle. Just to start.
I wanted the pictures also,
Okay.
and something more permanent.
You have to speak up to get it.
One thing I would like to say and show you this piece of art that one of our friends who's an artist welcomed us home with is may your Camino go on and on and on. And she's got a group of people just progressing across. And we found that not only does the Camino, was it important to us, but it was also important to other people who never would have gone on it, however it is in their hearts. So I really like the idea of more accessible pilgrimages that you mentioned. And we heard about the ones in California, but I can understand the fraught nature of some of that.
Yeah.
But there should be pilgrimages that we create too. It doesn't have to be created by someone else. So thank you very much.
I really agree with that, Barbara. And in a teacher's manual that I supported putting together, it's like with again, this is more for young people, thinking of sacred places around their communities that they organize a group of people to go to and talk about and reflect, places of natural beauty, historical places, all those could be developed. It's such, walking on the earth is such in many ways, a rare activity for an awful lot of kids. So let's do what we can to support that.
Linnea, did you have a question?
Yeah, there is a group. It used to be called the New Mexico Pilgrimage for Unity, and now it's just the Pilgrimage for Unity. And several times a year, this group, it was founded by someone who is a member of our pilgrim group, but after COVID, it became a virtual pilgrimage. So several times a year, like in January, it's a whole group. You can join anywhere. You can make your own pilgrimage. You can do one day. You can pick where you're going to go. You have prayer intentions, and you join together via Zoom with the rest of the people doing that group. And I find it very lovely, a very lovely experience to connect with the people that believe in pilgrimage. And you can do it wherever you are, whenever you want. I mean, there's usually a week when they have these events. We had one at Thanksgiving time. There's probably one at Pentecost, and there's the one in December. So if you look for Pilgrimage for Unity, it may be Ecumenical Pilgrimage for Unity. There's a website, and we could use more people participating in this, and I think people don't know about it.
Thank you, Linnea. That I really love that idea of doing a community pilgrimage on Zoom where you all get to reflect on the same questions and so on. It's a incredible adaptation. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I just want to say I am so grateful to all of you who came on. It's really wonderful to see you. I think we've had such a privilege in our lifetime to be able to get ourselves transported from this continent to the next continent and participate in this ancient tradition that is so supportive of both our spiritual growth and our physical well-being and our knowledge of the world and other people. I just feel such gratitude, which is a quality I could have had in there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say, oh, I'm sorry, was I speaking over someone? Linnea, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so just short. Well, we did book discussion groups, especially during COVID and during Zoom, and Esther's book was one of the first books that we all read. So that's also an idea for other chapters to use that book as a book discussion. And we also had Esther then join us for the discussion also. So, and we did this with several other books, Diane Homan, Chris Lowney, the Muslims, Christians, and Jews in medieval Europe, in medieval Spain, which was a very solid book to read. So anyway, that's just another idea.
Thank you, Linnea.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who joined us today, especially to Esther for speaking and leading us today in our conversation. I am going to just run through a couple of things that are going on here at American Pilgrims and ways that we can continue to serve you and your pilgrimage. The first is this recording will be available on YouTube in the next couple of days. So if you missed part of it or you want to share it with your chapter or something, then that is available on YouTube, as are all of our national events. So you can see past ones as well. Our website has our future events, so chapter events as well as national events are posted on there. You can get your credentials because I'm sure a lot of you are headed out to the Camino in the next few months. So that is also available on our website. And also just local chapter information. So if you have a question about something that's going on, or maybe you're traveling to a different area over the summer and you want to get involved in an event, then that is available to you. Our emails will continue to have the latest updates on what's going on with American Pilgrims, and we are so grateful for your membership in American Pilgrims and your donations because it helps us do what we do. So with that, I want to say Buen Camino, and I'll hang out for a second in case there's more questions, but thank you guys very much for coming and joining us today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.